Hey, I'm Daniel Kleinschmidt. Welcome back to the 4 Pillars of Leadership. Last time, we introduced the pillars and promised they would help you have complete control over your business. Today, we'll be diving into the first pillar of leadership, recruiting. First, let's cover the most fundamental rule of recruiting. Never stop. Always be recruiting. Why? Because life changes dramatically and overnight. So will your business. And secondly, some of the most amazing people are already happy somewhere else, and it's going to take a while to convince them that your business is the right home for them. If our response when someone leaves our organization is to start recruiting, we've already lost. We've lost time and money. Instead, we have to put ourselves in a position to say, which of our existing candidates is right for this role? Now let's talk about who you're looking for. It's important that you identify the traits that are valuable to the role that you're recruiting for. What traits make that role crazy successful? In fact, review some of your top performing individuals in that role. What makes them successful? And filter it down into 3 major categories: must-have traits, desirable traits, and deal breakers. For example, when I recruit for a sales position, the candidate must be high energy, outgoing, well-spoken. I'd prefer that they be driven towards professional growth and maybe have some sales experience, but I absolutely will not accept someone who's complacent, withdrawn, or lazy. Now that we know who we're looking for, let's start the search. But where do we look? How do we do it? There are 2 forms of recruiting I'd like to cover with you today. The first of which I feel is the most impactful and the most important for you to master early in your career. That's guerrilla recruiting. It's the most effective form. Why? We already agreed that the best people out there are already happy somewhere else. So we've got to go steal them. Think about your favorite sports team. Where do they get their best players? From other teams. If you work in retail or somewhere where your candidates are in the front lines, this is really easy. Just go shopping, right? Go into their brick and mortar, go speak to them face to face, and start building a relationship with those candidates. If your candidates are behind closed doors, software engineers and the like, your job's a little more difficult, but there are platforms on which you can build those relationships, like LinkedIn. Which leads me to the second form of recruiting we'll talk about today, which is simply your online platforms. Companies like Indeed, CareerBuilder, LinkedIn, and any company like them are great platforms on which you can find people and resumes to help supplement your candidates. Your company needs will quickly outgrow your ability to fill them solely by going out into the marketplace and finding talent. So it's important that you have additional means of gathering candidates and resumes. When you're out in the field, face-to-face with people, it should be easy to tell whether the person in front of you is the right kind of person for the role. But when you're hunting online, it's important not to let the resume be the end-all, be-all. A great resume can be just as misleading as a bad one. It's just important to know the red flags and allow those to be guidelines through which you speak to people. Some red flags worth considering are long gaps in employment, frequent job changes, or just the inability to represent themselves well on paper. By themselves, none of these are deal breakers, but each help paint a picture of whether this candidate is worth your time or not. So we've defined what we want out of an ideal candidate, and we've gone out and found a bunch of candidates. Now what do we do? Well, I don't recommend hosting 100 interviews and wasting valuable time with a bunch of candidates that probably aren't worth your time. Instead, let's do a phone screen and help us identify maybe 5 to 10 candidates that are worth your valuable time in an interview. A phone screen is a great opportunity for some of the basics. Questions like, are you looking for full-time or part-time employment? Do you have reliable transportation to and from work? But it's not time for a full-fledged interview. Instead, what you want is simply to get them speaking, to see how they represent themselves over the phone. This will tell you a lot about who they are and whether they're worth your time. You can do that by asking a few open-ended questions. A few that I like: tell me more about what you're doing now. Or what are you looking for in a new career? If you feel that that person represents themselves in a way that's befitting the role you're recruiting for, if you feel they exemplify some of the traits that you're looking for, then put them through the next round, which is interviews. Starting out, interviews can be kind of daunting. What's important that you understand is an interview is a conversation. That's it. You just want the individual to represent themselves under pressure. You want to ask them open-ended questions that get them talking so that you can see who they are. But what a lot of leaders miss is the fact that an interview is a two-way street. Yes, you want to identify the best possible candidate for your organization, but when you have top talent in front of you, they too are interviewing you. They want to know that your organization will match their needs as well. So our goal going into an interview is simple. We have to sell our organization as the best possible place to be, while also ensuring that the person in front of us is the absolute best fit for that role in our organization. So here's how we best prepare for an effective interview. First, outline how you plan to uncover the traits you're looking for. You can't just ask somebody if they're competitive. Most people know the right answer to that question. Instead, think of a few open-ended questions that would get you to that point. How did you feel the last time you were outperformed at work? What did you do? Second, prepare the benefits and vision of your organization. What would you like to share about your organization that would make the person in front of you feel like your business is the best place for them to work? Third, think about the space where you'll be hosting the interview. Everything about the way that you speak, the way you represent yourself, and the area around you will speak volumes about your organization and the pride that you take in your organization. You want to give them the right impression. So make sure it's clean and organized and you are dressed for the occasion. Lastly, remember not to command the entire conversation. Give them the opportunity to ask questions about your organization with each topic. This too is a great tactic to understand the candidate in front of you. Really talented people will have questions about your organization. They'll want to understand how it works. They'll want to understand how it benefits them. If someone in front of you is silent with no questions, they may not be the right person for the job. If I may offer one final piece of advice, it would be to be patient in making the right decision for your organization. Nothing is more costly than hiring the wrong person or missing the opportunity to hire the best person. No matter how much you like someone in an interview, don't offer anything up front. Finish your interview process. And if you don't find anyone that you're certain about, start over. Do it again until you are 100% confident, ecstatic to bring someone on to your team. Recruiting is arguably the most important aspect of your leadership role. It is the foundation on which you will build everything else in your organization. Nothing is more important than the people. I know the concepts we covered today are far more complicated than anything I could discuss on a single video. So if you have additional questions or would like me to further expound on anything we've covered, feel free to message or reach out. I'm there for you. I appreciate you being here and watching these videos, and I appreciate all the love and support y'all have shown me. And I can't wait to see you next time for training and development.